We all start our marathon training blocks full of great expectations, high hopes, we're going to do everything right. And then we go out and we train hard, but we neglect all the other things. One of those things that is really important not to neglect is nutrition. It's an area that you can really make big gains in your recovery, your adaptation, and your race times. It can be the difference maker between hitting your goal and just missing your goal. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why nutrition is so important. I'm going to talk about setting objectives. I'm going to talk about macro breakdowns by phase of your plan, and that includes the carb load and how best to handle the carb load and what the science says about the carb load and how I approach it. Why is nutrition so important? Well, first of all, it's important in everyday life anyway, right? You should be eating with purpose for the most part. Yeah, we do need to eat and enjoy ourselves, eat the things that we like. And I'm not saying that we need to cut out everything bad and we need to be completely focused 100% of the time. What I'm saying is fuel your runs and fuel your recovery with purpose. If I'm going out for a long, slow run, the night before that, I will eat a carb-heavy meal with high GI carbs, low fiber. I will have plenty of hydration. And then in the morning, before I go out for breakfast, I will have, again, the same type of thing. I'll have a high GI carb breakfast. That could be Rice Krispies, cornflakes, something along those lines, which is low fiber. It's basically carbs in a box, great fuel. And then I will also take gels and things on my run so that I'm getting my body used to taking them and I can get my digestion all ready to go for race day. And the sooner I can nail that down, the better. If I'm going out for a fast or a high intensity training session, maybe it's intervals or tempo run or some kind of race pace run, I'm gonna fuel it very similarly. However, I don't need as much. Okay, so that evening meal mightn't be as important, although when we can keep our glycogen stores fairly high in our muscles and our liver, it means we don't have to take as much carbs on the course. When eating for an interval session or something like that, you will probably have enough carbs stored in your muscles and your liver that you don't really need to take gels. However, it's not a bad idea to have that breakfast or maybe a snack before your session, but with plenty of time to have that digested and out of the stomach. So again, high GI carbs. I always say the closer to the session, the whiter the carb, right? So white bread, white rice, that kind of thing. Again, Rice Krispies, cornflakes, things like that, pure carbs, they're great. And then just for an easy run, a recovery run, things like that, your nutrition, your carbs, your fats, you'll probably be consuming a mixture of carbs and fats. Okay. When it comes to after your run, your post-run meal should be a good mixture of high protein, good carbs, and a good bit of healthy fats as well. And that really puts it all together. That gets the recovery process underway as soon as you get that food into you. And that's really, there's nothing too complicated about it, right? Something like chocolate milk, it's probably the most common post-run recovery drink, right? You're getting your carbs, fats, and your protein right there. I would recommend getting something in addition to that as far as protein goes, just to have it. You can just, the repair process starts quicker. But the general advice is that within that first hour is the best time to get the protein and the carbs and the fats into you after a hard session. That goes for a long session as well. Just a general note on hydration. Your body is just going to work better when it's well hydrated. Nothing works in the human body very well when it's not hydrated fully. Muscles get hard to move. We are tired, we're lethargic when we're dehydrated. It's always best to be always hydrated. That's just general good practice. Let's talk about setting objectives. When I lay out my 16-week training block, I'm setting out what my current position is as far as body weight goes, and then I'm setting weekly targets. Now, I may not be looking to lose weight every week. As a matter of fact, some of these really high volume weeks, I'm going to be eating a lot more, and I may actually put on weight. That's not what I'm looking to do here. What I'm looking to do is eat with purpose. I'm going to set weekly calorie goals based on the weekly volume, and I have a few tips for you here. But I am setting weekly targets for calories, for my macros as well, protein, carbs, fats. I'm also setting expectations as well as what my body weight's going to be week by week. And sometimes that's going to go up and sometimes that's going to go down. As a matter of fact, it's more likely to go up on a high volume week than it is on a low volume week. It's just I'm consuming more food, and that's going to be, it's going to even super compensate my glycogen stores and things like that. So yeah, it's not always a straightforward progression down as far as body weight goes. As far as calories goes, it's not always a straightforward progression up. It depends on the week, but that is eating with purpose. For those of you who don't track nutrition, it's fine. I'm not saying everybody needs to track the nutrition, but it is a really useful tool to know approximately what your macros are, right? I would just suggest for 1 or 2 weeks, just record what you're eating in an app like MyFitnessPal. They make it very easy. You can scan your ingredients, you can scan the things that you're eating, and then at the end of each day, you get a really good idea of how much you've eaten as far as protein, carbs, and fats, right? Simple. And I know a lot of people don't want to do that over the course of 16 weeks. But if you do it for a week or two, you get a general idea. And you know that, 2 scrambled eggs is going to give you 12 to 14 grams of protein. Chicken breast might give you 40 grams of protein, depending on the size of it. A tin of tuna might give you 25 grams of protein. Carbs, a big bowl of Rice Krispies might give you 40 grams of carbs, right? You may be looking to get 2 bowls of Rice Krispies. 100 grams of Rice Krispies is 86 grams of carbs. These are tools that you have, or that you should be able to build by just putting in a little bit of effort, in the first couple of weeks, and get a handle for that stuff. Then what I do track my calories every day. I find it's very important for me. I'm a real numbers nerd. I like it. I'm not saying everyone has to, but once you have an idea of how much carbs, protein, and fats your typical foods have, then just write down every night what you're going to eat the following day. Just write it down, and then it makes decision making really simple. You're not reaching to make a bad decision. You're not reaching for whatever's handy. You know you're going to have this, that, or the other thing. The more you know, the better you'll be. Okay, as far as race weight as an objective, I'm 5'10", and my ideal racing weight is 148 to 152 pounds, and that has been determined because I've ran 44 marathons, and I'm really confident that I know that I've raced at all different race weights, and that's a really good range for me. I do my strength training on a daily basis. I do my stretching and yoga, and so these things, if I can fuel my training properly, that race weight is fine. That means I'm light and lean, and I'm strong because I am doing my strength work. There's a lot of little things that I do, and I'll talk about these things in other videos. That's why I'm confident in that particular range of weights. That's an objective, and I set that on a weekly basis. So on my 16-week training plan, I will put in what I suspect or my goal weight would be for that week. And sometimes that weight goes down, sometimes that weight goes up, and more often than not, that weight stays the same. As far as getting to your objective race weight, I would say try to get there before you even start your training block. That way, it's not something you have to worry about, and you'll never be too far away from it. Or try to get to it as soon as you can. In the first 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Uh, that'll be take one thing out of the equation that you don't have to worry about. Now, for me, I would love to hear everybody else's opinion on this. When I get to about week 10, I am just dropping weight constantly. It's falling off me, and I'm not eating less. I'm eating, if anything, I'm eating more, but the pounds just are coming off. And I don't know if it's the metabolism is kicking in, or the engine is just ticking over. That's just how it works for me. But I'd be interested to hear how it works for you guys. Let's look at the 3 phases of a training block. I use my BPR format. So we have the base phase, the pace phase, and the race phase. The base phase, we're looking to build strength, start to work on that aerobic capacity. We're looking at building that discipline, that running routine, and making sure that we're building the right habits in the first few weeks. Depending on your experience, your current fitness level, where you think you're at, that is going to determine how long that base phase is. In the base phase, we're probably consuming a little bit more fats than we will in some of the other phases. But generally speaking, my personal breakdown of macros will be somewhere around 20 protein, 50% carbs, and 30% fats. When we get into the pace phase, I'm going to be looking at maybe going up to about 25% protein, sticking with about 50% carbs, and down to about 25% fats. We're really breaking down the muscle in the pace phase. So we're looking at higher intensity, more longer runs, that kind of thing. So our muscles are breaking down, and we need to fuel that recovery. Then in the race phase, where we're really we're still fairly high intensity, fairly high volume, but both of those are starting to come down. This isn't the taper yet. For me, the taper is 10 days. But for some people, the taper would be 3 weeks, 2 weeks, or whatever. So that will be coming down considerably. And I'm looking to change that back probably to about 55 to 60% carbs and maybe 20 and 20, right? But I really want to get the carbs sorted, right? So we talk about supercompensation of glycogen levels in the muscles in the liver. And I suppose this is a nice segue into the carb loading phase. Carb loading phase, yeah, it's important. I am not a huge fan of the general formula of 10 to 12 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight. I would feel terrible. I'd feel bloated. I'd feel heavy. I just wouldn't feel good. Generally speaking, a carb load should start about 48 hours ahead of race day, ideally. We used to do a carb load by doing a complete carb unload beginning of the week, and then we start loading back up again. I think the science has said that that's not particularly effective. So what do we do? So this is really where my problem with the carb load is, with the basic 10 to 12 grams of carbs per kilogram. Not everybody has the same capacity, right? My body composition isn't going to be the same as somebody who's 28 years old, lifts heavy weights every day, and has got a body fat percentage of about 15. That person is storing a lot more carbs than I am, because where do we store carbs? Where do we store glycogen? We store it in our liver and in our muscles. That person has more muscle mass than I do. That person's younger than me, right? If I have been running longer, okay, that gives me a slight advantage. My body has adapted to be able to store more carbs. There's a lot of variables, and it's not just a straightforward thing. What does the science say? Well, back in 2010, Benjamin Rapaport, who is a Harvard professor, and he did come up with a formula, but now not all of us everyday runners have this kind of information. His formula looked at how much glycogen your muscles or an individual athlete's muscles can store. That is not something that you and I have access to on a daily basis. I did go and get my metabolic rates and my VO2 max and all of these tests done with Health Fit Labs. He gave me a really good sense of what I needed to eat on a daily basis to fuel my running, right? Really, really important stuff. What we determined is that I'm looking at 450 to 500 grams of carbs in my carb load will get me super compensated and get the glycogen stored, because there's no point in eating too many carbs. If I followed the formula of 10 to 12 grams of carbs per kilogram of body weight, I could be looking at 2,000 calories per day more than what I could possibly use, right? And that's not going to leave me in a good place for race day. So having that information from the metabolic testing and the VO2 max testing and all these other lab tests can really make a big difference. I always say I recommend everybody does one defining marathon in their running career. That to me means looking at all your nutrition, hydration habits, your strength and conditioning, your stretching, your sleep habits, all of the things put together to make one 16-week block of really highly focused training. Just once in your life. You're putting in the work anyway. Why wouldn't you just do it, go all in, and just see what you're capable of? And then you can never say that you don't know, because you will know, right? There are intangibles that you can't account for, but yeah, those are the gambles, and that's why we're endurance athletes. We take that chance and we give it all we got. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. I will have the Rappaport study in my show notes. I'll have contact details for Health Fit Labs in the show notes. And other than that, I wish you all the best in your marathon training, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, thanks.